First of all, we have to understand the drivers for any startup, and these startups, if their drivers for making technology decisions, any startup would have to realize its own primary elements. It needs to consider what kind of technology mindset usually is there in with anybody taking those decisions, the interactions that happens for technology in any business, maybe within Bait or similar to Bait. And finally, we will conclude with what kind of characteristics and change implications for these startups, and how are these basically implicating on the decisions with regards to technology. So first, startups, as any other business, they are they're a function of people, processes, and products. Clearly, within the people side, you can have to think about employees, customers, vendors, competitors. Processes manage the flow of those activities within a business that produces the outputs, that takes the inputs from the various stakeholders. And finally, the outcomes comes in the shape of products, whether it's services or tangible items. One of the characteristics of the startups is that it's unique in terms of the strong drive of their founders, and effectively the place is usually open for new ideas, and so there's a good amount of potential to generate new technologies or embrace on new technologies. Now, the technology mindset that happens usually at these stages is that, whether I know about certain technology or not, and effectively maybe some of my team might also know about it very well, so I might embrace that as an option. But while it might be a good option, still I have to consider that this is a company at growth, and potentially there will be new people coming in. Is there a learning curve for that technology? Is it obsolete? Is there shortcomings of taking that decision? Another decision would be, let me look into what other businesses are doing here in the region or in my field, and basically follow suit. And whatever tool they're using for their database or they're using for their application system, and let me just pick up that and go with it. The problem here is that I might actually be missing an opportunity in being more, missing an opportunity against my competition and to retain some of my competitive advantage. Finally, I would actually just follow best practices based on what consultants are actually advising, and in that field, there is a good chance that I'm first missing on my, potential of competing against competitors and having an edge with them. I might be there at that early stage of my business. I might be having very little influence on those vendors, and hence I have very little leverage. And finally, I need to consider what kind of training and activities needs to happen for me to get people into using those business practices. It might be overwhelming, and it might be something that I cannot really execute on. So it's very important to understand that these are somehow some of the decision-making mindsets that usually happen at choosing a technology. The startup characteristics that we all maybe realize as people who's maybe running SMEs or startups, it's that change is the name of the game. So in terms of people, you have them all the time coming in and out. You have to hire people aggressively. You might be actually hiring the wrong people sometimes, and they might leave. There's a good chance that the customers, if you're succeeding, they're growing in their expectations and in their requirements. You will have you are seeing somebody basically complaining that the content is not mobile supported. I hope it is somehow able to reach to the people who's using the mobile. So sorry if you can't. Startups, to some extent, they experience the highest rates of change, clearly, because there's many variables. They're starting with very little knowledge about what you're about to face, and they have the least resources to deal with a change. And obviously, they have very little resources, financials, or maybe they have very little market presence that they could, weather through that change if they don't really move fast. Now, on the other side, startups have flexibility, so that you can take decisions within technology or within any area that you're doing, and you could move quickly on it because you have very little legacy, very little luggage to move with. So that works for startups. Now, how does that integrate technology? Clearly, the technology would be affected in terms of the entities that join and leave. So there's quite lots of expectations with people coming with their experience and working with certain technologies. So you might be basically using Google Apps as your mail client, and you find people who just hired. They are basically very accustomed to using Outlook. You might hire some people in technology who came from, let's say, an Oracle background, and you have some kind of an open source Postgres or MySQL. So it's varies, whether it's an end user or it's a technologist. So those people come in, and there's a good possibility some of them leave. And since you have very little documented knowledge or shared knowledge between a bigger team, there's a good chance that you will lose this with the people who leave. While you're getting bigger as well, the system gets spread thin, and then there's a good chance that the collaboration channels becomes more congested. So there should be some kind of, this is a challenge actually from a technology perspective. Same thing for customers and vendors, basically require more engagement. There's more data that you need to process and understand and respond to. There is a good chance that your team will become much more specialized, and hence you need to segregate responsibilities, and you use proper workflow processes. And this definitely will require some technology to be put in place. Could be rule-based access, what have you. And these are all components that definitely affect any startup from a technology perspective.